Good afternoon, America, and welcome to the Dean's List. We are happy to have you joining us on the America Out Loud Talk Radio Network. We are here Monday through Friday at the 2 p.m. time slot. We have a wonderful guest with us today who I would like to introduce. It is Dr. Hutz, Dr. Hutz Hertzberg. He has served as the Chief Executive Officer for Turning Point Academy since July of 2022. He served as the executive pastor of the Moody Church in Chicago. He has served as a chaplain in the United States Naval Reserves. His resume is lengthy. He's involved in leadership to the Protestant chaplaincy at Chicago, O'Hare, and Midwest airports. He's got a couple doctorates, and his academic degree is lengthy. Dr. Hutz, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Dean. So good to be with you.
We also have the occasional co-host with us today. Cindy is back in studio.
Greetings.
That's 3 days in a row for you.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Hutz, I think the first question that comes to my mind about Turning Point Academy, and Cindy and I have talked about Turning Point Academy a little bit here on the show, and it sounds like Turning Point USA. Is it? Can you explain the affiliation with Turning Point USA and Turning Point Academy?
Yeah, certainly, Dean. That's a great question. Turning Point Academy is the education division of Turning Point USA. So we're one of the newer divisions, began about 15 months ago or so, out of a real concern with what's happening in the world of education today, which we can certainly unpack that. But we are affiliated with Turning Point USA as the education division. So we are directly connected to them.
Thank you for that.
Right. So I have a question. We were listening last night to a speech you gave at the Pastor Summit, and you said that we are in a 911 moment in education right now. So could you explain that to the Out Loud listeners?
Yes. And I really don't think I'm overstating it by saying that. I don't think. As I laid out to the pastors there in San Diego, I feel that so much of education is failing our children in about every way that you can measure it. Certainly academically, the amount of statistics and research and studies that have come out about where our kids are, how our kids are doing is very, very troubling, to say the least. I mean, math and reading scores are for most kids are not at grade level, the standard national grade level, but it's worse than that in terms of just how far they're falling behind. And I don't know if you saw recently in Baltimore, Maryland, there was a study that came out, a recent research, that there's not one child in the 18 public high schools in Baltimore that are reading at grade level, and the same thing with their math scores. So it's very, very troubling. So, but that's just at one level, Cindy. At a whole nother level is just that kids are being taught now not so much how to think, but what to think. In other words, I'm referring to indoctrination, and that's troubling at a whole nother level, because kids no longer are really getting an education that is truly helping them develop critical thinking skills and really learn how to think and learn for themselves. But they're being fed exactly what to learn and what to believe. And of course, this is true in many places. It wouldn't be true in every place, but it is concerning. And we're seeing the fruit of that in terms of what's happening in schools across the country. But again, it's worse than that. And for those of us that hold to the Christian faith and believe that Christian education is really true education, and apart from a Christ-centered, God-centered education, is less than a true education, it is so difficult now for students who hold to the Christian faith to be able to bring their faith to bear in their schools. And there's all kinds of examples of this. I'll just give you one, but this is a very personal example. I led a school in the northern suburbs of Chicago, a K through 12 school, for several years. And there was a wonderful family that had all 4 children come to our school. But at the 8th grade year, every one of those children went to the public high school down the road. And other families did that as well. But this was very interesting for us because this family was a committed Christian family. Their oldest son, was a leader in our school, clearly shared his faith, had great impact. So about a year after he went to the public high school, my wife came across his mother and asked how Tom was doing, and asked if Tom was able to bring his faith to bear in that setting and how he was doing. And, is he able to incorporate his Christian faith in his papers and his work? And she said, oh, no. Tom's learned to keep his head down, not to bring his faith to bear. He knows that if he's going to get through, he can't talk about his faith. And we just thought, how tragic, how sad that, if there was a time in the past, and I think when I went to school, there was freedom to bring my faith to bear in a public school, but that day is long gone. And so our kids are really being, in many cases, just either shut down, they're being marginalized, they're being told that they can't talk about it. And I thought, what a shame. And certainly, there's no strong Christian component to the education in the public government schools. I mean, we know that. I mean, it's just the opposite, as I said a minute ago. So for all those reasons and more, Cindy, it really is a 911 moment. And I just wish, and I'm so thankful for programs like yours that help people become aware and parents become aware of really what's happening out there. It's so needed today.
I want to ask you about the 5 C's, but before I do, just to follow up with that, and it seems like in the Christian community that parents have the mindset that they want to send their children off to public education to be salt and light. Let them be missionaries. And it almost seems like we're in this, I guess, to speak to your 911 moment, we're at this period where I don't see it as being beneficial for Christian young people to have that burden placed upon them to be salt and light in this arena that's just going to crush them.
Dean, that is such a good question. And I hear that often, actually. And my response is, would you send a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old to Indonesia as a missionary, or to whatever country, someplace in Africa as a missionary? And the obvious answer is you wouldn't, because, they're still in maturation. They're still growing as a person spiritually in every which way in maturity. And yet, for some reason, we think we can send our 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 16-year-olds into such a hostile environment, and that somehow, they're going to be light in that environment. The light is no longer allowed. That's the problem. It's no longer, if neutrality ever existed, which I'm not sure it did, but if it ever did, it certainly doesn't now. And so, as I said a minute ago, those kids are shut down, they're marginalized, they're ostracized. There is no opportunity, really, in most cases, to bring your light to bear in the public school setting. It's sad to say that, but I believe that's the case. And so what I also say then, Dean, is that I'm all for salt and light in the public school. You go as a parent, you go as an adult, as a staff person, as a teacher, you go and be that salt and light, but don't sacrifice our 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds and expect that they're going to be salt and light in such a hostile, antagonistic, anti-God environment, and that they're expected to be that salt and light. It's just more than they can bear.
Well said. Absolutely. Well said. I do want to get into the 5 C's, but I want to ask you this question about the public schools. I think we have two paths that we can take, and I don't know that we take one or we take the other, if somehow we can take both. But what do you say to the thought or to the question of just pulling out of the public schools altogether versus fighting for the public schools? Because we have these two different camps, and quite frankly, I'm not sure where I stand. I agree with the notion. Obviously, Cindy and I run a private Christian school, a classical Christian school. And so we think that people should come and be a part of a classical Christian education. But at the same time, I'm a fighter and I want to get in and I want to save public education. I'm not really sure where we fall on that. What do you say to that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Here's my response, Dean. I feel that just as I was saying a minute ago, I would say get your children out. The day of trying to bring reformation, in trying to salvage education in any meaningful sense for most children in most schools across the country is very, very difficult, if not impossible. So I say if there's any possible way that you can put your child in a setting such as yours, such as in a hybrid Christian school, as such potentially homeschool, whatever options you can possibly do apart from putting your child in that environment, I would say that's what you need to do. Now, to your point, are those schools worth fighting for? I would say yes, but as an adult, again, run for the school board, work in the school, create awareness in your church about what's happening in the public schools. Now, honestly, I feel that, again, in most cases, they're too far gone. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do all that we can. And, as Christians, we are concerned about the public sector. We are concerned about everything that happens in culture, including education. But again, that's for the role of the adult. That's the role for the parent, not for the child. And so I say, get your child out and then do what you can. And if you're in a life situation where you can run for the school board, run for the school board. If you can sign a petition and make change that way, do that. If you have the opportunity to work in a school without compromising your Christian values and faith, then do that. By the way, which is harder to do now with the things that are mandated. But I think in some cases, a Christian can still work in the public schools. And I say, do that and bring change from inside. So the answer is yes and no. But honestly, I'm not real hopeful for wholesale change within the public schools.
Well, I agree.
Mhm.
We were talking about this situation in Colorado with Erin Lee, where she discovered that her 12-year-old was, being transitioned without her knowledge. And as she was revealing laws that have been passed recently in Colorado, laws that, for example, make the 12-year-old the sole responsible party for their mental health. And parents have to leave this part of the appointment with the doctor when they're talking about mental health with the 12-year-old. And as she is discovering this and revealing other laws, my reply was, that's it. You as a parent with a middle school, high school, elementary age school child, you've got to get them out of that public school. Sure, go ahead and fight for the school as the parent, run for the school board or get involved. But as you're fighting, I don't know that you can keep your child in that place. Well, Hutz, can you explain to our audience the model of the 5 C's?
Yes, absolutely. So the 5C model is something that we've coined here at Turning Point Academy. The 5C model is not unique or original with us per se, but we've just tried to communicate it in such a way that helps people understand what it is and how it can work in their setting, in their context. Those 5 C's stand for Christian, classical, conservative, church-based, and cost affordable. And I feel like we know every one of those C's is vitally important. And so that's the model that we're scaling across the country, working primarily with churches and pastors, but not exclusively, and to help them establish in their setting schools that are Christian, classical, conservative, church-based, cost affordable. So that's what we mean by the 5C model.
Okay. So I had a question, when TPA partners with people or groups who are potentially interested in starting a school, what have you noticed inspires their enthusiasm? And then what have you found are their common concerns regarding their endeavors to launch a new school?
Right. Well, what we have found is that more and more people are waking up to the reality of what's happening in education, and more people want to try to do something. And so they're not exactly sure what to do. And so we like to share with them all the different things they potentially can do, including starting a school. And by the way, we love those that are homeschooling, and we love those 5-day a week schools like what you lead in Flint, Michigan. There, we're so excited and grateful that your model of schooling, Christian classical education, is proliferating across the United States. It's exciting. And I come up from a family of classical educators. My wife was a classical school teacher. My in-laws started a Christian classical school in the inner city of West Dallas. My brother's kids all have gone to classical schools. And so, and our own daughter is part of a classical school. So we love that model. But all that to say, in terms of what you've asked there, Cindy, is people are becoming awake to the need to do something. And a lot of people are kind of shied away from, boy, I don't know if I can start a 5-day a week school. And you know how difficult that is with all the moving pieces that you have to deal with. I led a school, as I mentioned earlier, and there's so many moving pieces, to really make that go. Some people are obviously, and rightly so, intimidated by that, just as some parents are so intimidated by homeschooling. I don't know anything about education. I don't know anything about curriculum. How am I going to possibly homeschool? I don't know even where to start. And we feel like this model is kind of the best of both, the best of a 5-day model week school and the best of homeschooling, for reasons that I can certainly share with you. But in the answer to the second part of your question, a lot of people just don't know where to start. I just shared with the pastors out in San Diego, a beautiful letter we received from a pastor in suburban Houston, who about 10 months ago came to one of our vision days, knew that they needed to do something, but didn't have a clue in terms of how they needed to do it, what they needed to do. And so we were able to walk with them in a 10-month process. And just a month ago, they started with 150 students. So we're so thankful that we've had those opportunities. So everyone has normal questions and fears and apprehensions. We're here to say, we're not experts, but we've been down the road, and we would love to walk with you in that process.
So let's say I'm just a normal mom or dad, and I see what's happening around me, and I want to start something. What would be my first steps?
Well, I think the first step would be determining what it is that you want to start. Okay. Because again, as I just said, there's a range of options, from everything from what you're doing to the homeschoolers to various models in between. So in terms of wanting to start our model, we have trainings that begin soon, but we would be glad to even have an initial conversation for them to join us on a vision day to understand what it means to be a part of a Christian classical conservative church-based cost affordable school. And so we're doing these every week now, and in just about a month's time we'll start a cohort, and we're planning on 20 schools. We feel like we have capacity to help 20 schools for this next year. And the cohort will begin in about the middle of October, towards the end of October. So right now is a great time for anybody who is potentially interested to express interest. We can share what this means, and then our commitment to walk with you. And Dean, we're so fortunate, and Cindy, we're so fortunate to be able to offer this without charge. It's a great blessing and joy to be able to do this. So we're not doing this as a moneymaker. This is our mission. This is our calling. We're excited to be able to help. And so that's what we would do. But that would be the next step, is to join us for one of our vision days.
Okay, thank you for that.
Hutz, I absolutely love what you said about when you say we're not experts, but we've been down that road, and we're willing to walk with you. And that, to hear that, just, I love it, because I know that Dean and I would have cherished that when we started 17 years ago. So you are offering a treasure to people, and I'm so thankful for what you're doing.
Well, thank you. And you and Dean now are experts in what you're doing. So
I don't know about that.
We're going after it every day.
Yeah, recently we said we're absolutely still in the learning process. I don't think you ever stop learning when you're running a school.
That's for sure. There's a lot of moving pieces every day. And so I totally get it.
So, Hutz, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, with your organization? How do they find you?
Probably the easiest way is just to go to our website, turningpointacademy.com, turningpointacademy.com, all one word. And there you'll not only just get a general overview of what it is we're doing, and we've talked primarily about starting schools, but we do provide educator training. We do provide curriculum and resources. And we would love, just like you have done, and we're so thankful that you've joined our association, Turning Point Academy Association. We would love for your listeners who are interested in the world of education and what's happening to become a part of the association. You can join us either as a school or as an individual. And that way you're in the inner circle, and we're just beginning to roll out some of the wonderful things that we want to do with our association. Dean, you'll be encouraged that we now have 35 states represented already.
That's
and,
awesome.
We're just a few months old, so we're really thankful. But yes, if they would go to turningpointacademy.com, you will see information about our upcoming Vision Days. And we would encourage you to just sign up for one of the Vision Days that fits your schedule. And then we have an extended amount of time, much longer than you and I've had here today, to be able to talk about what it is that they need to know and what it is they need to do and how to begin the process. And we would love that for anybody to do that.
And I will say it's very beneficial. It's very informational. I was in a recent Vision Day Zoom call, and even after the call was over with, some of us stuck around to further the conversation. It was
wonderful.
It was the information that you've assembled and provided is really wonderful.
Well, thank you. We are a work in progress, but it's been encouraging that we're getting traction. We're getting a lot of interest, and we're so grateful for friends like you and Cindy that are really, really interested in being a part of what we're doing and helping others become aware of what we're doing. So I'm so thankful for you, Dean, and for Cindy.
You're welcome. We believe in the mission, and we're happy to be a part of it. I'll put all of your information in the show notes. So the next day, our show goes into podcast, and all of the notes are there. So we'll have all of your information included in that. What else you want to say, Hutz?
Just thank you again. Wonderful work that you're doing, and we deeply appreciate it.
Well, thank you for that. And again, thank you for what you're doing. And I've had the chance to look at your website and see some of the great things you're doing at your school. So keep going. We need you, and Flint, Michigan needs you. And so glad that we can work together, partner together. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Hutz Hertzberg. We are happy to have him join us today. And we will pause for this break. We will pick it up on the other side. You're listening to the Dean's List on America Out Loud Talk Radio.